Welcome into the latest edition of our Cubs REKAP Podcast. It's a presentation of our REKAP YouTube channel and available audio only everywhere you get your favorite podcast. That is Gordon Wittenmeyer. I'm David Kaplan. We'll get to a number of topics surrounding my favorite baseball team, the Chicago Cubs. But let me tell you that it's all brought to you by the Illinois Tollway and their If Only campaign. Folks, summertime, everybody's feeling good. They're in a hurry at times. Please, please, please. If only I had slowed down is not something you want to say. The Illinois Tollway's new campaign is called If Only. And it's a powerful reminder that speeding doesn't just put you at risk. It affects everyone on the road. Every crash leaves someone wishing they'd done things differently. So take the extra time, slow down, save lives. Lives, including yours, depend on it. All right, Gordon, let's get into it. I was more than a little hacked off watching the Cubs game on Wednesday evening. Okay, they lost on Tuesday to the Giants after sweeping the Angels over the weekend in LA. And then I watched the game on Tuesday night. Didn't play great, lose. Okay, it happens.
Verlander,
on
right?
Wednesday night, they get pounded 12-3. But I knew the game was in the tank when I looked at the lineup and Justin Turner's hitting cleanup. Carson Kelly's hitting fifth. And why is Owen Casey even here? I know he's going to play on Thursday, and that's what this is as we're recording it. But this manager, man, he drives me insane. Vastly overrated and grossly overpaid.
That I'm not going to say you're wrong because I think you're mostly right on this one. But that game has nothing to do with it. And really? that lineup. And that
two times the bases loaded, and those two guys who should not be on a team serious trying to win a World Series in the 4 and 5 hole. Carson Kelly's a fine catcher.
You lost because you gave up 12 runs.
But when the game was still in the balance, bases loaded in the first inning. And guess what? Here comes Justin Turner, ground ball double player. Maybe that was Kelly, and the other one was Turner. Twice with one out, bases loaded. I don't have my best hitters in the middle of the lineup. What are we doing?
Look, my thing with this is Counsell is a good manager. I'll give him that.
He's fine.
He's a good manager.
Okay.
There's nothing special or extraordinary about him.
Thank you.
And for him to for Jed to go kick Ross to the curb like he did, from what I hear, there's a lot of background to this, that it was, completely blindsided him and I think kind of did him dirty, to replace him with a guy that on balance maybe isn't any better, and pay him more than anybody he's not even the best manager in the division right now. He might not be the second best manager. He's probably the third best manager in the division.
Terry Francona is certainly number one.
And Murphy.
Now, Murphy has 2 years, basically, of experience, and he's going to win 2 divisions.
He might win 2 back-to-back Manager of the Year awards.
Correct.
So, he comes from, the direct comparison is right there in front of your eyes. He comes from the place that Counsell supposedly did all his magic, and maybe we're finding out it wasn't Counsell's magic.
So people are saying to me, well, why do you dislike Craig Counsell? I don't dislike him.
No.
I don't know him. I've met him once, I think, in my life, maybe twice. I don't dislike him at all, and I'm sure he's a fine human and a great dad and a wonderful husband, and he's an okay baseball man. That is not what we were sold when he was hired away stunningly from the Brewers for $8 million a year.
We were told he does more with less.
Correct. And
I haven't seen it.
He will make a major difference. Well, guess what? He won the same number of games as David Ross last year, and this year I've watched the same issues again. Offense struggling, questionable lineups, and they're going to lose the division again to the franchise that he left.
Yeah, and they're talking, by the way, you want to talk about that for a second. They're talking about trying to catch the Brewers, and they're comparing it maybe to 2018 when the Brewers caught them after having a big lead going into September, and how it can be done. I'm starting to look at some of the details of the pitching and saying they almost better. I mean, I don't think they're going to, because I think the Brewers are that good. I don't think this is an aberration, a mirage, or anything else. I think the Brewers are that good, so I don't think they're getting caught. But the Cubs are good enough that they can play well down the stretch and put some pressure on them.
And their schedule's favorable.
So if things fell right, they could catch him. And the reason I say they kind of better catch him is because, they just put Tyone on the IL. That's
again
right. And all the talk is that if this were the playoffs or if this were the last week of the season, you needed the games, he'd pitch through it and all that. And this will make sure that he's healthy on the back end of that. Great. But I'm not even worried about that as much as this. Cade Horton has as many innings this year as he had his pro career before this. So you got to start wondering for a young pitcher what his workload's going to mean for his effectiveness and what he might look like come late September or October. And Matthew Boyd, the same thing. Matt Boyd's last couple of starts haven't looked like all-star starts. Certainly not like he pitched earlier in the season. And if that's an indication of his workload coming off that big injury, then that's also something to have an eye on, because he's got 153 innings or something like that. His career highs were when he was 25 and 26 back-to-back seasons, 170, 185. He's got as many innings this year as he's had the previous 3 combined, more than that. So now what happens when you have to lean hard on these guys in playoff series? Because that's your playoff rotation. Those guys are your playoff rotation with Imanaga and maybe Tyone.
I would tell you this. As we sit here right now, since July 1st, pretty big sample size, almost 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
The Chicago Cubs starting rotation has the best ERA in the major leagues.
Yeah, I had seen the stat from All-Star break into Wednesday's game.
This is almost 2 months.
Yeah, so
it's pretty good.
It is, but this is where you've leaned on these guys. Their innings are piling up, and this is something to pay attention to, because what we've talked about now for months is they didn't get maybe the depth that they had, the resources that they could have gone out and got. And so since you don't have the depth, you better keep these guys right to have any chance at all.
Why Tyone's on the IL.
It absolutely is. And so now when you start looking about the prospects of trying to catch the Brewers, which looks more plausible today than it did a week or two ago.
6.5 back as we record. But the Brewers have the Phillies after this, and they're losing. As you and I are taping, I don't know how things are going to turn up, but they're losing to the Diamondbacks 6-2.
I mean, the Cubs
could wake up tomorrow morning and go, we're going to Colorado, a team you should handle, and we're 5.5 back.
If you were to get out of Colorado and make up a game and a half on these guys, now you're within 5 games.
Gordon, last Monday, a week ago, you were 9 back.
And here's the other thing about the Brewers. You own the tiebreaker, so you don't have to beat them outright, and there is no playoff like there was in 2018. If you tie them, you're in. You win the division.
And you'll probably, if you do, you'll probably be the 1 seed in the National League.
You'll certainly be one of the top 2 seeds, and probably because of what it'll take to catch them, probably the 1 seed. So you're hosting, but you're getting a bye. You're getting a bye, and then you're hosting.
Okay,
and that's huge when you're talking about the innings issues that I just brought up.
Okay, so I have a question, because I'm getting this on social, and it's a fair question, and far be it from me to ever duck a question. You know me.
You'll make up questions.
I'll come after. I'll go at it with anyone they want. They want to debate. As long as it's friendly banter, let's go.
Friendly?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So here's my question for you. People are saying to me, in fact, my neighbor, I was just leaving to come here, and my neighbor saw me. Oh, where are you running to? I said, I got to go do my Cubs podcast. He's like, oh, you and Gordon? I watch every one. I said, Jordan, I appreciate it. Go Cubbies. We'll see what they do today. He said, can I ask you a question? I said, yeah. He goes, you guys have the second best record in the National League, or right there, maybe third. And you just are so mad at the manager all the time. Why? I said, because I need him to be better. Better. He's like, wow. I never thought the Cubs would be 19 games over and you don't like the way things are going. But fans are like me, right?
Yeah, well,
am I being too hard?
Some fans are like you.
Am I being too hard?
Sometimes you are. I mean, sometimes you fail to see the big picture. Let's be honest. I mean, it's a 162 game season, and a lot of times you'll get angry at one game that may or may not say anything about the season. So, I mean, that's a fan, but I'm not sure that that's. Your friend Jordan, I think, might have a point.
I am who I am, and if Craig was sitting right here, and I hope one day we get him in here, I would love to say to him, "Do you understand?" Like, I know he wants the Cubs to win. It's his life. It's his job. It's his career. But guess what? If he leaves the Cubs and takes the Orioles job or the Dodgers job, he'll want that team to win as much. Me, I'm a Cub through and through, man. I'm not a mercenary. Well, I'm going to move teams. And that's what managers are. Players are mercenaries. When Dansby Swanson played for the Atlanta Braves, he wanted them to win, as he should.
Cap, what's the best thing that Counsell does as a manager? What's his greatest strength as a manager?
He's even-keeled.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I asked that question because
his team plays
genuinely
hard. I'll give him that. His team runs balls out when I see other teams now. I watched Pedro Grifol in this town.
An average manager's team plays hard because number one, they're professionals, and number two, he hasn't lost the clubhouse. It's a bad manager whose team doesn't play hard. An average manager's team plays hard. They have reasons to play hard for themselves as well as their teams. So I don't always give the manager a lot of credit for that. I do sometimes, especially when things are going rough. But I'm not sure. I don't know that he necessarily handles a pitching staff better than anybody else. I don't know that he necessarily is great with young players, because we've covered managers. Joe Madden was terrific with young players. May not have been the greatest game manager. It wasn't Tony La Russa in managing games, but he could manage young people and make them convinced that they were established before they were, and you got more out of them more quickly.
Example, Javi Baez.
Right. Addison Russell, for God's sake, who went on and did zip in his career, but was a starter on a World Series team. So we can point to things that, Lou Piniella had this obsessive competitive drive that I think carried over onto his teams. And when he had veteran players, he translated that into success on the field, sometimes drove his pitching staffs into the ground along the way. But we can identify
Dusty
got more out of his players because he was a terrific people manager.
Correct.
And guys would run through a wall for him in a way that's beyond what you said about guys play hard. Guys would play for him, because he had everybody's.
We saw Kerry Wood basically, lay his heart on the line. 135 pitch outings prior, yes. 140 pitch.
And to this day, talk about him in glowing terms.
Both guys I've asked, with a mic and without.
Yeah.
Did Dusty push you too hard? And
no.
Kerry Wood looked me in the eye and went, "We're trying to win the World Series, man.
Yeah.
That's what I'm there for."
So
absolutely not.
This is what I'm talking about. When we can identify all these other managers who are anything from good to great, or we know what their strengths are, but I don't know what Craig Counsell's strengths are. I think all we got was this sort of vague notion of that team overachieves, and that's the manager that's been there the whole time.
So who would you, if you bought a team today, who would you hire?
Well, I cover the Reds, and Francona does as good a job as anybody in the game. He's going to the Hall of Fame. He's 66 years old. So if you're talking about who do I want for the next 10 years, I'm not hiring Francona. And by the way, you know who's older than him?
Who?
Murphy.
Pat Murphy is older.
Pat Murphy's a few months.
He's got to be older.
Well, yeah, but Murphy, sometimes we think of him as a first time manager, and we think maybe he's 10 years younger than that. But he's not. You asked me that, and I think Alex Cora's a really good manager. Mm-hmm. I might want him. I'm just running the teams through my head right now. I love what Dave Roberts does, and I know he gets a lot of criticism because maybe the front office has always been a little more involved in his teams than some managers get from their front offices. But he manages up and down, and definitely manages his players exceptionally well. Delegates. He's perfect for that place. I mean, I can name a half dozen managers that I know why I respect what they do, and I know what I think I'm getting if I go hire them, and I would hire them ahead of Counsell. And Counsell's making more than anybody in the history of the game. I'm not sure why.
Because he was a free agent and he had teams bidding for his services.
Yeah. So why did this one feel? What was it that this one thought they were getting to come in and swoop in and throw that much more money on the table?
That's what it took.
No, but I get it, but I'm just saying why? Because Jed came in out of nowhere on this, and
it came together like in 24 hours.
Exactly. And what did he think he was getting? So it's one thing if you're the Mets and you need the manager, and this is the guy that you want to go get. This is the up and coming guy, and plus they went and got Stearns. They went and got his GM too. So
right.
So there's some synchronicity there, and there's some method behind whatever that madness would have been if they'd have went and got him. But why do the Cubs go? Why do they blow Rossi at the end of the year and talk about how great he is and he's done everything that we want and we have all the faith in the world, and a month later decide to swoop in and be the surprise team that goes in and pays this much money and gets this guy? What specifically were they seeing that was that great? I get why the Mets were doing. They had an opening and they had a reason. What made you think? Because it hasn't played out. Whatever they were thinking hasn't played out, and I'm not sure I'm not even sure they told us anything that stands up now as reasoning for that.
All right, so they're going to go play Colorado this weekend, and then you look at their schedule. They don't have the Brewers left anymore. The Brewers have the Phillies coming up. The Brewers have a very tough schedule. So as we sit here today, do you think the Cubs can run them down?
No. I just think mathematically it's so improbable. I don't see it happening. I think it's certainly possible for the reasons you just said. But I'll tell you one thing. That this is one thing that Pat Murphy does. Like if it gets down to nut cutting time in the last week of the season, last 5 days, week of the season, like it was in 2018, and the Brewers basically didn't lose. I think the Cubs went 4-3 in their last 7, which should have been enough to close it out. But I think the Brewers literally didn't lose. So if it comes down to that last week and it's close, here's the thing that Murphy does, man. He makes you believe you're winning. He makes you believe there's no reason, there's no way anybody's catching us. There's no way you're not going to go up there and get that hit with the 2 outs and the runner in scoring position, and so I think, again, we're talking managers, right? I don't think they're going to fold. I don't think that if they're in position and they have the ability on the field to do it, I don't think they're going to fold. They might just simply get beat. But they're also really, really effing good in 1-run games this year. So I don't think they're going to catch them.
So here's what the Cubs schedule looks like. They are in San Francisco, as you and I tape. Then they go to Colorado for 3 days. Then they come home. They play the Braves in Chicago for 3. Monday afternoon, 3:05 game, and then 2 night games. They get a day off on next Thursday. Then the Washington Nationals come in for 3. And then they go to Atlanta for 3. Another day off. Come home again. Get Tampa Bay for 3 in Chicago. Then they go on the road to Pittsburgh and Cincinnati for 3 and 4, respectively. Come home after a day off. Mets for 3, Cardinals for 3. That's it. That is not an incredibly daunting schedule.
No, but the Braves aren't as easy as they look on paper, and I think they're getting Sale back if he didn't just come back. So here's what boils down to.
Here's the Brewers schedule. The Brewers finish up with Arizona today as we tape. Then they get on the plane and they're at Toronto for 3. Those are big games for Toronto, trying to win the East.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Okay. Then the Brewers come home. They play Monday, get a rare Tuesday off, and then play the same team Wednesday, Thursday. That's the Phillies in Milwaukee, 3 games. Then they go to Pittsburgh. They go to Texas, day off, come home and play the Cardinals, day off, play the Angels, go to St. Louis, go to San Diego, come home for the Reds.
Wow, so that's 4 out of the last 5 series that they should win, and maybe sweep a couple of them if needed. If you're not setting up your pitching,
Philly going back on the road is not easy.
Here's why I say the math is tough. So it's 6.5, right? I should know this. What's the loss column difference?
The standings in the National League right now. Milwaukee is 83-51. The Cubs are 76-57.
So 6 games in the loss column. So we're talking a 6-game difference. And again, all they have to do is catch them. They don't have to beat them. But here's where the math gets difficult. So I think as we go into the weekend, there's 9 series left. So if the Cubs won all their series, let's just say, for sake of argument, let's call them all 3-game series. Cubs go 2-1 in every one of those series. And the Brewers go 1-2 in every one of those series. Now, that's not going to happen. But if that happened, that's a 9-game swing. And then the Cubs win by 3 games. It would take that for the Cubs to win by 3 games. If 3 or 4 of those weeks or 3 or 4 of those series are equal, now you're talking about all the rest of those swing the Cubs' way, and you're right on the cusp of tied or not quite catching them. And I'm just saying that the math is really hard with this few games left. So I don't think Cubs they catch them
currently.
But
the only teams with a better record: Toronto, Detroit, Milwaukee, and the Dodgers. That's it.
Yeah. However,
Philly for the 5th best record in
however,
all of baseball.
A lot of these teams, Blue Jays, I'm sure include, like the Cubs are 19-18 in the second half. They were nearly 20 games over in the first half. So
Cubs were 15 over on June 1. That day, Kyle Tucker, the day after, broke his hand.
Right.
We didn't know it was broken until Jesse reported that the other day, but it was a sprained finger.
It's funny, as soon as they give him a couple of days off and admit that it was broken, like he comes out and hits 3 home runs.
It's unbelievable.
So maybe he's back, and that'll be a big part of the equation, obviously. I've said this to you, Kap, and I've said it to everybody who's brought this up. Well, how big a deal is Kyle Tucker? It's one guy. When he joined the lineup, everybody in that lineup got better. You saw what they did the first couple of months of the season. They raked as a team because they had that type of bat that they added right in the middle. And that's what a guy like that does. A big left-handed bat right in the middle of a good order makes it a great batting order. We saw that. What happens when that same guy goes the other direction? It takes wind out of your sails.
Like Suzuki. By the way, the Brewers also lost Trevor McGill.
I know. I saw
that is a major blow.
It is, but they're deep there. They can,
right. But to replace your closer,
I agree.
Tough.
And so one more reason why it's possible, I still think the math doesn't make me want to go there.
It's going to be close. So for everyone out there, I think I speak for a lot of Cubs Nation. I'm not going to say I speak for every. I get frustrated because I'm passionate. I want my team to win. And I feel like when you put Justin Turner in the 4-hole, no. Should he be on the roster? Look, he's a great leader. He's washed. He's done. Should he be on the roster? That's a different argument. We can have that discussion
if he's on the roster, he's got to play. Now, if you don't want him in the cleanup spot, that's fine.
He should have been hit 8th.
Okay. I'm sure there was a matchup reason for it that I don't have right here in front of me on my papers.
How'd that work out?
Yeah, well, how'd giving up 12 runs work out?
But at the point in time, maybe it doesn't get to that. And I'm sitting on my couch and I'm watching the game and I'm like, he's done, Craig. Let's take Colin Ray out. He's done. Of course, another hit up the middle, a blooper, and then Tucker throws it into first base and it hits Matt Chapman in the head and deflects all the way past home plate, and another run scores. I'm like, what in the F is going on here?
162 games, Kap.
It's hard for me to stay focused like that. Gordon, have a great day, man.
All right, you too.
I know your wife dropped you off here. Yeah. I was hoping she'd come in here and watch as I go at spar with you. But we actually were pretty civil.
This was actually civil. She could have probably handled this.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, that's Gordon Wittenmeyer. I'm David Kaplan. It's brought to you by the Illinois Tollway and their If Only campaign. Folks, please, we've all said it before. If only I'd slowed down. The Illinois Tollway's new campaign has been called If Only all summer long. It's a powerful reminder. Speeding doesn't just put you at risk. It affects everyone on the road. Every crash leaves someone wishing they'd done things differently. So take the extra time. Slow down, save lives. Lives, including yours, depend on it. For Gordon, I'm Kap. That's the Cubs REKAP Podcast. Take that.